our show is on perception, lies, and deception in suburbia. Mrs. Horace Ansley and Mrs. Dalvin Slade were friends since childhood, living across the street from each other and attending the same social events. But these two women never really knew each other. So what do you think of Mrs. Ansley?
Mrs. Horace Ansley, 25 years ago, had been exquisitely lovely. You wouldn't believe it now, would you? Though, of course, still charming, distinguished. But as a girl, she had been exquisite. I mean, far more lovely than her daughter Barbara is, although certainly Babs, according to the new standards at any rate, has a little bit more edge.
We had lived opposite each other, actually, as well as figuratively, for years. When the drawing room curtains in number 20 East 73rd Street were renewed, number 23, across the way, was always aware of it. And all of the movings, buyings, travels, anniversaries, illnesses, the tame chronicle of an estimable pair. Little of it escaped me. But I had grown bored with it by the time my husband had made his big coup in Wall Street, and I had already begun to think I'd rather live opposite a speakeasy for a change. At least one might see it rated. And the idea of seeing Grace rated was so amusing that, before the move, I launched it at a women's lunch. It made a hit and went the rounds. I've sometimes wondered if it crossed the street and reached Mrs. Ansley. I hope not, but I don't much mind.
A few years after the speakeasy incident, I lost my dear husband. Mrs. Ansley did too, and for a while there, we were reunited under the shadow of our grief. But we drifted apart, back into our own lives eventually. I feel that my unemployment, my retired position from the life of a real celebrity, is much more than poor Grace could ever experience. It was really a shocking drop from being the wife of Delvin Slade to being his widow. I only live for my dear, quiet Jenny now, and truth be told, I find life a little dull at the moment.
If I had to sum up Mrs. Slade in a phrase, I would say that she's awfully brilliant, but not as brilliant as she thinks.
What do you mean by that?
She had always been an extremely dashing girl, more so than her daughter, who was pretty and clever in a way, but had none of her mother's, well, vividness, someone had once called it. Sometimes I think Alida Slade was disappointed. On the whole, she had lived a rather difficult life, full of failures and mistakes. Sometimes I feel sorry for her.
And what about this story of the Forum in Roman fever?
Oh, that old wives' tale. Oh, it's an old family tale. My mother used to frighten me with it when I was a child. You see, my great Aunt Harriet sent her sister to the Forum after sunset to gather night blooming flowers, but then that sister caught the fever and died. And so then Harriet married the man they had both loved. Like I said, my mother used to frighten me with it when I was a child.
And the Colosseum? I had heard it was a great place for lovers, even with the cold.
I dare say. I don't remember.
The underhanded cruelty of women we have all experienced. Even with these two honorable women, we can see vestiges of their vindictive nature, along with misunderstandings and secrets. Let's bring them into our studio. Welcome, this is Horace Ansley, and this is Dr. Slade.
My dear Mrs. Slade, it has been a long time.
Well, Mrs. Ansley, it has been a long time. I hope you are doing well.
I am. And you?
I have fared better. I can't bear it any longer. I have something to tell you. I know where you really went that night when you were out sightseeing late and became ill. You went to meet Delvin Slade, my fiancé, because of a letter you had received from him that night when...
For the audience's knowledge, this incident happened many years ago, long before the ladies were ever married.
How did you know about this? I burned that letter.
I can repeat every word of that letter. My one darling, things can't go on like this. I must see you tonight. Come to the Colosseum after dark. Someone will be there to let you in. No one whom you need fear will suspect. Of course, you remember. and it was signed.
Only your DS. Telpin Slade.
It was the only letter I ever had from him.
And I wrote it. But I was the girl he was engaged to.
I'm not trying to excuse myself. I remember that.
And still you went?
Still I went.
You do understand. I'd found out. And I hated you. Hated you! I knew you were in love with Delphin. And I was afraid. Afraid of your quiet ways, your sweetness, and, well, I just wanted you out of the way for a while, just for a few weeks, until I was sure of him. So, in a blind fury, I wrote that letter. I don't know why I'm telling you now.
I suppose it's because you've always gone on hating me.
Perhaps. Or maybe it's because I wanted to get it out of my mind, for once and for all. I'm glad you destroyed that letter. Of course, I never thought you'd die. How you care for him still. You tried your best to get him away from me, didn't you? But you failed. And that's all.
Yes, that's all.
I wish now I hadn't told you. I had no idea you'd feel about it as you do. I thought you'd be amused. After all, as you say, it happened so long ago. And you must do me the justice to realize that I had no reason to ever think you'd care. How could I, when you were married to Horace Ansley only 2 months later? As soon as you could get out of bed, your mother rushed you off to Florence, and you were married. What else could there be? I mean, people did wonder why it was done so quickly, but I had an idea. I thought perhaps you'd done it out of pique. To see and say, and all of that, that you had gotten ahead of Delphin and I. Kids have the most silly reason for doing the most serious things. And you marrying so soon convinced me that you'd never really cared.
Yes, I suppose it would.
I suppose I did it as some kind of a joke.
A joke?
Well, girls are ferocious sometimes, you know. Girls in love, especially. And I remember laughing to myself all night, thinking of you waiting around there for someone to let you in, dodging in the dark, listening for every sound. Of course, I was upset to hear how ill you were afterwards.
But I didn't wait. He was there. He arranged everything. We were let in at once.
Delphin there? They let you in? Oh, now you're lying.
I answered his letter.
Oh, God. You answered. I never thought of your answering.
Well, you should have thought of it if you wrote it.
Yes, I was blind with rage.
I'm leaving. I feel sorry for you.
I don't know why you should be sorry for me.
Because I didn't have to wait that night.
Yes, I was beaten there. But I oughtn't begrudge it to you, I suppose. After all, I have everything. I had him for 25 years. And you had nothing. Nothing except for that letter he didn't write.
Well, I had Barbara. Well, I had Barbara. Well, I had Barbara.
So, that's the end of our show today. Tomorrow, next week, we will have Michael Pollan come in with his book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, and we'll be discussing the effects of fast food. All right, see you next week.
Dude, at the end we should totally have something being all like, feet!
What?
Girls are ferocious sometimes, girls in love especially. And you know, I remember I was laughing. Goodness gracious.
But I didn't wait. I answered the letter. That's not this line. He arranged everything.
Oh God.